This episode of the podcast is brought to you by the UK's #1 coral selling website, prestigereef.co.uk and reefdork.etsy.com for all your 3D printed aquarium accessory needs. What's up, YouTube? I think I've got that timing perfect. I was literally counting out loud what's in the numbers. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Prestige Reef Dork Show. We are talking about soft corals today, which I've said in the past are boring and I have no interest in. And I've changed my mind, kind of.
That's interesting.
It is. Yeah.
I didn't know that was the reason for the show, because you've changed your mind.
Yeah, well, I said change my mind. I'll explain why later. Because some soft corals are really boring still, but certain soft corals are really nice. But anyway, before we get into that, there's some news, of course, as always, and there's a really nice Prestige Reef Fish of the Week actually later, which I like, and the coral of the week is a soft coral.
That's true. So, yeah, I thought it'd be on trend, like
yeah.
stick to the theme.
Exactly. But before we get into that, Ryan's going to bore the tits off everybody by telling us what he's been up to, and then I'll do the same.
Well, prepared to be bored, because my week is not that exciting, I'd say, this week. But okay.
No, I said, right. Oh, no.
Oh, no. Right. So obviously, as I've said this before, my work is the hobby these days. So if I said to someone, tell me each week about your job, it's difficult, because obviously you do the same thing every week. There was some fragging this week, which is good, so, the zootrope has basically been completely sorted, which is amazing. I am it's a long process. It's probably about 75% done now, which is good. And part of the reason that it's being done is because I have decided to try a new sort of revenue stream for the company. And that is, do you remember a couple of weeks ago we spoke about eBay?
Yes.
Where we said, and you basically almost, essentially convinced me to give it a go. So a couple of weeks ago, you basically said some people sell loads and loads of stuff on there. And I just thought to myself, well, I tried selling on there probably 4 years ago now, and it wasn't sort of super successful. Yeah. But I've got a lot more coral now. So I have put my first 15 corals up. They are actually up. They are ending tonight. Some of them are ending in. Yeah, there you go. You found it. There's nicer corals than that, but they're all what you see is what you get. And they are literally ending within the next, I think, sort of, some of them are ending in 20 minutes and some of them are ending in the next 3 hours. Yes. But they're much cheaper than what there's on the website. But I started them all at 99p.
16 quid for one of those jelly bean chalices. Is that 200 quid on your website?
That's one of the less, the not as nice one. The one that not, yeah, it's one of the not as nice.
It must be 150 though.
It is one of the pieces which is that expensive. Yes, it is one of the more expensive pieces. It's one of the less colourful pieces.
But I'd love it if that went for 16 quid. No one else bid.
You would love it if it went for 16 quid. I reckon there'll be people in the chat. And if you're bidding in the chat, let me know. If you win it, let us know, because I'm intrigued. Because I won't know until after the live stream. But the main ones, like the chalices, end at the very end. I didn't want people to be distracted, so I did that on purpose. I'm like, don't be distracted by us talking. But it'll be interesting to see, because there's a local person who sells coral on eBay, and he says actually he does quite well from it. So if it works, it works, and I might start doing that more consistently. The reason I started it as well is because Worldwide Coral sells a huge amount through eBay.
Really?
It is I think, well, I don't know if they still, I'm assuming they still do it, but it was a significant revenue stream for them, because obviously if you have a really, really expensive acro that you've grown yourself, and on the website it's £500, it's one of those really crazy expensive ones, and then you put it up at 99p, and people bid it up to like £200, it doesn't matter so much because you sort of like that you've grown
Someone's
it.
getting a bargain, and at the end of the day, it's cost you 35 pence in bicarbonate.
It's basically cost you the same amount as, and obviously they have huge overheads and stuff like that, which is why the corals have to have a specific price. But the other thing is, like, if you want to get, like, the biggest problem with a coral farm is you need to be able to shift corals quickly. Like, so not all corals, some corals like those chalices are very, very slow growing, which is why the price is like up there. Whereas if you've got, I don't know, name something that's fast growing, like Sunset Montipora. Or Xenia. Yes, you can put it on there, and then you can quickly get rid of some of the corals that you have too many of. But after eBay reversed it, saying that they weren't, that they no longer were going to stop people selling on there, I thought I'll give it a go. Interestingly, I thought to myself, I'll do it 2 weeks in a row. I thought I'll do it like this week, and I'll have it more uploaded for a week later. And then I forgot because obviously you have to start them a week in advance, don't you? But all I'll do, you can start them with their 5-day auctions rather than 7-day auctions.
Oh, I see. You can schedule it, so you can just do like 10 now and schedule them to start 1 week apart. But
yes, that would be better. But and as I said, the main benefit, there is a little bit more effort as well, is that they are what you see is what you get, and I think people love that. I think that's
totally.
It's weird because obviously I pick corals for people all the time, and I trust myself, obviously, but would I trust someone else to pick for me? Like, are they going to send me is the picture amazing, and then you get to send you like this really crap one? You know what it's like? It's like the Wild West with pictures out there, isn't it?
Yeah, completely. Yeah. No, I know. I don't like people choosing corals for me. And even like sometimes if you buy a coral online, sometimes you get given a free coral. Or if you go and buy a coral off of a fellow hobbyist, they'll be like, "Oh, do you want one of these as well?" Or I've given you one of these free as well, and I'm like, "Oh, I don't want it."
I mean, that's interesting because I actually send I send free corals to people quite often, and I wonder how many people are happy with that, and how many people are not happy.
Because I'm fussy and I know what I want. I'm quite particular. So, like, if I was new to the hobby and I got a free coral, best day ever, right? But because I'm very fussy about what I want, that's why I'm choosy. But even when I do get a nice coral, even when I get someone sends me a free coral or gives me a free coral or whatever, because I buy 5 others, if I don't like it, I take it to my local fish shop and exchange it for credit, or I give it to someone or whatever, so it's no hardship.
I usually get a message from people going, did you mean to add something extra, or is this just an accident? Because I've got something that I didn't order. Because I feel like people are so not used to like that, if you see what I mean, that they're confused. But it doesn't happen all the time. But generally, also, if people buy regularly, it's definitely more likely to happen, because I can see I've got like a list of top customers. So yeah. What else have I done? So I've continued stripping down the coral trays. So how many have I got? There's 8. I've done 4 of them now. The great thing about doing this is that firstly you get all the like crap from underneath the trays, but also you can remove loads of fish that would just put in there. Customers bring fish back, like not backed, but like they want to get rid of some damselfish, or there's a clownfish. At one point I had like 20 clownfish because everyone wants to get rid of them eventually. So now that I've got the quarantine tank upstairs, I can remove them and sell them basically, because the fish in the system should have a job. There's no reason for me to have 4 anties in there, or 10 chromis, or like clownfish. They're all I know they're adding waste to it, but one of the sad things for me is that I am getting rid of my foot-long Soho tang. So I have a in the bottom tray when you first walk in. It shouldn't be in there. Basically, I've come to a tray. It's way too big, but it's going to Jamie. So
really? So that's a 15-foot long tank, is it?
Yeah. So it's going from a 6-foot coral tray, where it's definitely too small for, to a absolutely monster tank where I go there relatively regularly, so I can still see it. So I know Michael Aarons, who's in the chat, had one, and he took it to the Sea Life Centre.
Really?
called Do you know? Remember one called Jeff? That
Yes, I remember Jeff. I didn't know he went to the Sea Life Centre though.
Yeah, I think it was a Sea Life Centre, or it was some sort of public aquarium it went to. So it'd be interesting to see if it's still there, because those are sort of fish that live for for 20, 30 years, I think. So, and I would assume that Sea Life Centres are pretty good at keeping fish alive. You would assume so.
They get fed well, wouldn't they?
Yeah,
cared for well.
So that is that. I've got some new corals coming in this week, which is interesting because.
Do you know what you've got?
The only thing that I know that is definitely coming in, I have ordered 3 scalemias, or scollies. So those little tiny ones. Yeah,
those ones.
Yes. So I've got 3 of those coming in. I think I've got a green one, a war paint, and I think one's just red. So yeah, basically exactly like that.
Have you got one of the? Yeah. So a bleeding apple.
Yes. So obviously I've not had scollies for a long time. It's been, and obviously they're like frag plug sizes, aren't they?
Tiny, yeah.
But it'd be interesting because it's like there is a demand for them, definitely. So
yeah, 100%. So my plan with that one, because I bought that a couple of weeks ago, was to and it's the same size, was to feed it all the time. And I've bought a new pot of LPS pellets because the other stuff I'd had so long it's gone past its sell by date.
Yeah,
I still haven't opened this yet. It's still got the seal on it, and so I fed it like 2 or 3 times, I think, and I stopped. But I've just had a look now. It's looking really puffy. It's even without regular feeding, it's definitely bigger already, and I've had it like a month or whatever. It's a long-term project. It's not going to be 3 months and then it's full size.
Yeah,
but we talked last week about how satisfying it is it's not a recovery project, but to get something and grow it,
It'll be interesting to see how quick they grow long term. Obviously, for me, they're being sold, so I won't be keeping them. I'm one of those weird people. I have literally no interest in scollies. I have none. People absolutely love them.
Yeah.
But I've never had one. I've had them in the coral farm, obviously, to sell, but I've never wanted to keep one. Like trackies are my thing. I absolutely love trackies. I would have a tank full of trackies. But scollies, not so much. But it'll be interesting to see how they fare, considering obviously they're so small, aren't they?
Yeah, they are small. I'm going to move that. I have 2 proper full size ones in my main tank, and that one will end up in the main tank as well. But because it's so small, I'm a little bit nervous about putting it in the main tank because I've got the rabbit fish in there. Yeah. And I've seen a rabbit fish, my own rabbit fish, not that one, but a different one, with my own eyes eating my war paint scolly before. So, I think it'll be fine, but and it wouldn't take long to kill it, basically. So, but yeah, it will end up when it's bigger. It will end up in the main tank. I might move it to the sump actually because I've got a little frag tank there.
You just reminded me of something. I saw my rabbit fish eating a grafted Montipora.
Oh, really?
Yep. Literally like scraping, like not as in not like accidentally. This is in the middle of the, like you can see it's like died back and it's like scraping the top off, and I'm like, why did I trust Alex? I told him all fox faces eat corals. Yeah. I don't even, to be honest, I don't even know why I got it. Like I was obviously like an impulse buy because I'd never ever buy fox faces ever.
I'm an influencer, Ryan. I've influenced you.
Yeah. I wonder if it's because I can't remember. Maybe a customer ordered it and then they changed their mind. And I was like, oh, you can go in the coral tray. It's like this big. It's tiny. It's like 2 inches.
That's an inch.
Yeah.
2 inches.
For the people on the podcast, yeah, it's like tiny. Yeah. But as I said, it's only done it to 1. I'm like, I'll see if you want to try something else, and if you try anything else, you've got to go to Alex's tank as punishment. Yeah. It can go in your cade tank.
Cade. Might not fit.
True. No, definitely will fit. As I say, it's tiny.
Yeah, but give it 6 months. It'd be too big. There's too many fish in that tank already. That well, not too many, but the right amount. I want a little yellow clown goby for there as well, but I don't want a big fish in there.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you something actually. So there's been this weird phenomenon with the website at the moment, and I wanted to know if you and also the chat are having the same experience. Like now, this is generally like pond season.
Oh,
So,
I see.
but people are buying more coral now than they were a couple of months ago when it was like really cold. And the other thing that's massively picked up this week is the consultations, and I don't know why. Like, what this week has all of a sudden made people go, right, I need help from Ryan. So, and actually, to be fair, there wasn't help. So I've had 7, I think, this week, and one of them was about moving or shutting down an old tank, and then there has been a couple of other problems, but the majority of them were new people entering the hobby. So, is there something like Chris Hansen is in the chat? There you go. He's had one. So I just wondered. Oh, Harrison, sorry, yeah. I just wondered, like, is there this feeling? You know how usually people, it's like everyone gets it. Like, I've noticed a significant uptick. Are you feeling that at the moment? I'm asking you that question, and you can ask the chat as well.
I'm not, because I'm spending more time with motorbikes at the moment.
You're also pretty consistent when it comes to buying stuff just year round, aren't you?
Day in, day out, basically. So not for me. No, in the chat, let us know if, and in the comments afterwards, let us know if you're picking up at the moment. No, to be honest, I'm consistent. I'm a year round. It fluctuates a tiny bit, I guess, but not a massive amount. I don't know, with consultations as well. I love that beginners do consultations. That must be so valuable. When I say beginners, I mean setting up your first tank.
Yeah.
The 60. How much is it? 50, 60 quid?
It's 50.
50 quid. 50 quid for that. Bearing in mind how much money and it doesn't have to be Ryan. I'm sure there are other people who offer the service.
Oh, yeah.
But it should be Ryan. But for 50 quid, given how much money you spend on a tank, and the trouble is when I was dipping my toe in the water, I think I from memory I spent $2,000 on my first tank, everything included rock and that sort of stuff, and I'd saved up for it, and because it was so much money, and to buy a fish tank, £2,000, that's ridiculous, isn't it? And especially at the time, I was really sensitive about anything else. So you could offer me like a Radion for 100 quid, and I'd be like, oh, I don't know. So I can see why people might be price sensitive, but when you're spending a couple of grand, that extra 50 quid to get one-on-one advice rather than go on a Facebook group and post and who knows who's going to come back to you, or a forum, so worthwhile.
The ones I love the most.
There's a place for those groups, but just consultations, man.
Yeah. So Chris is one. He has actually had a tank for 2 years, but not set it up. So he's like done 2 years of research, and he's bought lots of stuff. But the ones I love the absolute most are the people that go, "I've got nothing. I've done 2 years or 6 months or research or whatever," and they come to me and they go, "I've got nothing. Like, let's start properly from the beginning." I'm like, right, let's go. Those are the ones that are the great ones. The ones that are a bit more harder when people go, "I'm ready to leave." But to this day, there's someone like one of my very first consultations. He still does it to this day. And he was like, I've done everything I can. I'm fed up. I've spoken to every shop. I cannot deal with it. And to this day, so I know that he's still in it because of me. And there'll be other people that are the same. It's far more rewarding than the money. I will be honest with you. Like helping people in that sense. Totally. You see what I mean? But yeah, look, I understand. If you ask me to pay £50 for, I don't know, something, advice on how to, I don't know, like DIY.
If you were buying a house and someone said, "Give me 500 quid and I'll give you some tips on buying your first house," you'd be like, "I'm not paying you 500 quid. I'm about to spend 200 grand on a bloody house."
even if you said, give me 50 quid and I'll give you tips on buying a house, I'd probably still say no.
You bought a car recently. If someone said to you, "Right, give me 50 quid and I'll talk you through what you need to look for," you'd be like, "Mate, I'm about to spend 15 grand on a car. I'm not spending 50 quid on that."
Yeah, that's true. They probably would have been really useful because they would have gone, "Well, this is what you need to do. Go ask these questions, check the service record. Who was the previous driver? Was it some like 18-year-old like man that's been driving around like crazy?"
Well, the question that would have been really useful for you is, what do you want to use it for? And then they'd have said, I'm going to buy cars all week in big boxes. And they'd say, well, you don't want to get a coupe then.
Yeah, true.
With a tiny little boot. Get a van.
If someone said to you, "I want to start a coral farm," that you would definitely tell them not to buy my car. Let's put it that way, because it holds basically nothing. So that was the sacro. For years and years, obviously, I drove a van, and then I bought a little car. And
But you've still got a van, have you?
no, I have access to a van because my dad has a
Oh, I
van.
see.
But
Right,
yeah,
okay.
there has definitely been a trade off between like coolness factor and like usability. Because sometimes I can only fit like 20 boxes in it, like coral boxes, like,
Yeah.
and that's not even in the boot. They're in the back of the car and everything. So on the back seats. Someone just very quickly asked a question with regards to the eBay stuff. If you win more than one, of course, yes, there'll be combined shipping. However, there is a problem with eBay at the moment themselves. You will have to pay for shipping for every single one you buy, and then I will refund you the shipping. There's a joint invoice. You would think that eBay would get this straight, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, they've had it for about a month as the problem. I don't know if it's fixed now, but the reason I know that is because I did that with someone else and they had to do it.
I see. It's so funny that eBay reversed that decision in like 24 hours or 48 hours. They were like, no more livestock. And then the next day they're like, oh yeah, okay, fair enough. Go on then.
And yes, Les collection is an option. They're really odd at the moment because they got rid of all the selling fees, which was great
Yeah.
because everything was free, and then they brought back a buyer fee, which is exactly
I've just seen that.
Yeah, it's exactly the same as the seller fee, but it's like it's hard to describe. So basically, if you sell something for £10, they add like 4% on it.
What do they call it? Buyer protection fee or something?
Yeah, so they add 4% and 75p on it. But if you think about it this way, if someone just was naturally going to pay 4% extra because the buyer doesn't realize this, all they're doing is that they've just changed the name of the fee that they're charging. So
it was about 13% before, including all in. I think it was 10% was the fixed fee for selling. So it's gone down. But ultimately, what that's going to mean, and actually, I've listed a couple of things recently, and I've noticed that there's that fee on it. So I've got something on at the moment that's for £495 because I want it to look like it's under. Well, I want it to be under £500. Psychological, but when you go on and look at it, it's like £523 or something.
Exactly.
So what's going to happen is, and when I get round to doing it, what's going to happen is people are going to go, oh, okay, I'll just reduce it. So I factor that in and it says £495. So then the sellers will end up taking a hit. So it's a seller fee again.
Yes, exactly. So I'm sure they can't run with no seller fees, but I didn't
understand how they did, because eBay, surely all their money or vast majority comes from the commission they get on sales. So how can you lose that revenue stream? It'd be like you saying, "No, I'm not going to charge for corals anymore."
There are some people that have proper shops on there where I think obviously if you're selling like hundreds of thousands of products, but like yes, if you're just like emptying out your loft and you're just selling 10 items, like because you can sell on Facebook Marketplace and loads of other things. So, just interesting. I've just realized something. People in the chat are going to be bidding against each other. So they'll be like, see, they'll normally if you're on eBay, you don't know who wins it, but the people in the chat are going to see who wins it.
So, quick question: is your discount code active at the moment?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, so I'm just leaving it up for the moment.
I just went on your website to have a look. It's okay. So the business sellers must generate a lot of income for them, but I still find it weird. There must be a significant portion of private sellers, and there you go. You've just lost 10% income stream.
Yeah, as I said, because I almost felt like wronged when they went, "Here's a month where you don't have to pay anything." I was like, "Oh, yippee!" That was why I decided to go into it, and then they went, "Oh, by the way, we're bringing the charge back," and I was like, "Oh." Then again, everything like you get charged. You should look at the costs of of PayPal, like from people buying corals through it. Like my PayPal bill every month is hundreds of pounds, and I'm like, wish there was like a different way. But Shopify everything charges. So like
Etsy charges quite a lot.
That's like 14%, isn't it? It's like I'm sure it's. Oh my God.
So I've not been able to work out exactly, but it's roughly, I work on the basis that it's 23%. So if I sell something for £100, they take £23 and I get 77.
How do they even stay open? How do people accept that?
So I have a website. You can, it's reefdork.com or .co.uk. You can go on it now. You won't be able to see anything. It'll just say there's not even a website there. I have that domain name, so at some point I could set up my own website. But Etsy has already got, it's established. Everybody knows Etsy. It comes up in searches and all that sort of stuff. So, and it's easy. So I could go off and do my own thing. I'd have to drive traffic myself to that website. And Shopify would still charge me, I don't know, 5% or whatever. So, you know, I'll do it.
We went slightly off on a tangent, haven't we?
Oh, fish, corals, hang on.
The other thing that I thought was really, really interesting, I've said this to you already, I think you were surprised by this, and I like, remember the last 2 weeks I did a mixed mystery box. I'm not doing one this week. But the chalice one didn't sell anywhere near as well as the torch one. But the chalice one was actually far more the cost benefit of better the chalice one it was far better value. There you go, thank you. Than the torch one. But people just love torches.
Your most expensive torches were 120, right? And your most expensive chalice was 200.
I know. It was just, it like blew my mind. I thought that they would sell out immediately, but pretty much like the torches sold like crazy. But I think I sold like, I think maybe 4 boxes, maybe 3. It could be 4, 5, 3. I can't remember now. But it was like, I was shocked at the difference. But that just shows you, just because me and you are interested in something, because obviously I spoke to you about it before, didn't I? I spoke, and you went, "Oh, that's a really that's good." And then you thought they'd sell out, and both of us were wrong, because obviously our taste in corals is totally different to other people's.
I just don't get it. Those chalices are so nice. The one thing I'm going to say, actually, and speaking of torches, I saw earlier on Ultimate Reef, this guy in Thurrock, Essex, is selling some really nice torch corals. He's got this one, which is a Holy Grail, and then a load of other ones. That's the mother colony. So if you're anywhere near Essex, basically, go on Ultimate Reef.
SS17, it says.
Yeah. Go on Ultimate Reef. He's a bit too far. For the Holy Grail torches, I would have had that if he was closer, but he's a bit too far, and it's be a 3-hour round trip all on the M25. I hate the M25. But if you're anywhere near, have a look on Ultimate Reef on the livestock section. He's got some.
You know what I liked about those pictures? They were just normal pictures.
Totally.
There was no like super enhanced, like, because corals should sell themselves. And if you feel like you have to edit the pictures to sell the coral, you've probably priced it too high.
That's what Ultimate Reef is really good for that. It's just, you don't get, some people take terrible photos, but you rarely get people trying to polish photos and make them look amazing. It's like a community of people looking out for each other.
I think also, if you think about it, you're held. I'm not sure if they're looking out for each other. You're held accountable, because if you're on there, you know what the community is like.
You have 10 people like, sod off, mate.
they will know that. So it's like a self-governing community with regards to selling on there.
Maybe, but either way, you get bad photos on there. Mobile phones taken at a bad angle with bad light and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
but you very rarely get photos where people are trying to make it look like turning the saturation up massively and making it look blown out.
They make it quite hard to sell on there, though, even just for normal like people. Because I don't like. I might be wrong, but I know there's like a limit with regards to, because it's for people that use the forum, isn't it?
It's supposed to be a perk, so you can't sell if you're a commercial seller. It's a rule that you can't. So if you're a commercial seller, you can't sell on there. It's a perk for people who contribute to the forum. So you have to have a minimum of 50 posts, and every now and then someone will be like, "Why won't it let me post?" And it's like, well, you need 50 posts, and then 2 minutes later they're like, hello, just posting and commenting it, and it's like, no, not that kind of post.
That was me like 17 years ago.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's for people who contribute to the forum is the idea, and so. But
the other thing
you can't talk commission.
I don't know if it's good or bad that they do this, but it's like you have to take a picture of the coral and the tank, and it has there's like a specific forum or the colony of the coral, and I like, you sell on there. I don't. I'm not even on there. But I don't. Is that like difficult, or is it annoying to do, or is it you just
piece of cake? If the people. Yeah, it's really easy, and I think it's a good thing as well, because then you get to see, for a start, they get to monitor and make sure that it's not a sneaky shop
Seller.
trying to
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. But you get to see I love seeing the mother colony. It's so good, and the full tank, because then you see what state the tank in is. If the tank was covered in dinoflagellates, you'd probably pass. But you see, so really, like that guy who was on there a minute ago, it was the tank of the month. His tank looks amazing. The mother colony looks super healthy. So he's said that the frag was settled for 2 months. So that frag, it looks really nice. I know what it's going to look like when it grows into a proper colony, and I know that it's coming from a nice tank. So for a buyer, it's fantastic. And I sell stuff I haven't done for a while, but fairly regularly. And I never find myself going, oh, this is a pain. It takes 2 minutes to do it properly, and it benefits me as well, because if I'm selling a coral on there, I go on and say, well, I want people to see what the colony looks like, so I'll take a good photo. I want people to see what the frag looks like, so I'll take a good photo, and I want people to see that the tank looks nice. So unless it's covered in algae, in which case,
yeah, that's the problem. Plus, if it was like if you had just bought a coral, and then not just bought it, but you had a car and it was just enough to frag it, so you had like 2 frags. If you got the original one, you got your one. They're like, show the picture of the mother colony. You're like, okay, here it is, and this is the frag.
Yeah. So, I've done that a couple of times before. In fact, recently I bought an Inferno Gonny. I had an Inferno Gonny that died, really, annoyingly. I don't know why. So I bought a new one, and when I took it off, when I bought it was off a fellow hobbyist. I took it off its frag plug, like a good boy, and put it on a new frag plug. But when I did that, I split it in half. So I ended up with 2, and I was going to sell one of them, but I just figured, you know what? If one of them died, I now have a backup. So I probably will sell it in like 6 months or whatever. But for now, it's nice having a spare.
You're lucky that it survived, because Gonnies can be sort of temperamental with fragging them sometimes.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I was one of them. The smaller frag that I broke off, I thought was going to die, but it was totally fine. Corals are quite tough, actually. Yeah, they're both they're extremely tough and extremely finicky at the same time.
You should have seen when I very, very first started, and it doesn't matter how many videos. Like when I first started with the coral farm, it doesn't matter how many videos you watch of like getting a bandsaw and cutting through a Gonny or cutting through a Favia or a Gonny Astra, and you're like, this is definitely going to kill this. And then the next day, they get covered in slime and they look terrible. The next day, like they're all open and happy. Not so much Gonnies. Gonnies usually take 3 or 4 days to open usually, but yeah, Gonny Astras are just they don't care about anything as long as you cut down the ridges. So
I had an acro colony a year or so ago. I can't remember what it was, but I thought I saw a pest on it.
Yeah.
And so I fragged a bit off that had this pest on it, or what I thought was a pest on it, and I put it in a dip. And I put it in that dip for, I do it overnight? I think I did it for 3 hours or something like that. And then, and 3 hours, it's supposed to be in for 10 minutes or whatever.
Yeah, just to clarify, it's one of those things we have to clarify. People do not put your corals in for 3 hours.
But this was a frag, so I didn't care if it died. Sorry, coral. But so I did that, and it turned out it wasn't a pest. It was just a part of the coral. It was fine. It was a new polyp or whatever. I can't remember. But so it was fine. But I put that back in the tank. I was like, well, let's see what happens. And it survived. It was alive. 3 hours in a dip.
Yeah,
it was designed to kill invertebrates.
Yeah, true. That happened once with me where I
remember.
Basically I had to go out, and the corals were put in dip, and they were someone else was meant to put them into the coral farm, and I went out for 4 hours. This is a import of corals relatively early on. This is like 1,000 pounds or more than 1,000 pounds it was of corals relatively early on, trusting someone to just put them in the coral farm. After 15 minutes, I had to go out I can't remember what it was. 4 hours later, come back, they're still in there. And I'm like, what? Like, it might not have been 4 hours, it could have been 3 hours. It could have been 2 hours. I don't know.
It was a long time.
It was a lot longer than it was meant to. Corals were completely fine. So I think that 12-minute or 15-minute dip thing is more of a suggestion rather than.
Well, it's long enough to kill. And actually, to be fair, I've had other times when corals haven't done well with being in dip for a long time. So it's that's long enough to kill the bad things that you want to kill, flatworms or whatever. Do you remember you were looking after
someone that day?
Yeah, exactly. Do you remember about when you were looking after my fish? I came down to collect them. It was a year ago actually.
Yeah.
And God, I've had that tank for a year almost. Anyway, I came down to collect them, and you put them in a bucket, and then we went off to do something else. And when we got back, you forgot to turn the air stone back on. Remember that?
Why an air stone? Why was there an air stone?
You had an air stone in the bucket because we were going to go off and do some.
Oh, yes, I know, I do.
Yeah.
Ah, yes. So I'd spent like months looking after these fish, didn't I?
Yeah.
And we caught them all, put them in the bucket, and then we went out, didn't we, for an hour or something? And I'd forgotten to put the air stone back on. And imagine if I'd killed them after all that time.
That's the thing. If we'd have just said, "Oh, should we just stay out for the day or whatever?" and just, oh God, that would have been.
I would have put that on. That would have put that on you, because you know me. I don't like to leave my. So we both know that I wasn't the one saying let's go for lunch or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, that was a nerve-wracking moment. What else have you been up to? We've gone off track.
Oh no, I don't need to do it. I don't, other than the fact I actually started watching the Serious Reefs videos. That's the final
brilliant. Yeah, you said
on my list. Yeah, I started watching them. And look, to be fair, you're right. They are worth watching. They're like I've started from the very beginning, and I even watched some, like I watched the intro one first, which it was about, I think it's 50 minutes long. It was mainly about what they're doing and why they're doing it, so it wasn't super like informational. But one of the ones that I found interesting was the what was it? The one, there was a lady who's breathing.
Bridges, like, the lady who's recovering corals. Nicole Bridges, sorry.
Yes, she sort of basically finds corals which are half dead and brings them back. And interestingly, I found some stuff as well that like some of the information that she says is interesting, because I actually use BRS's coral glue. BRS, just so everyone knows, BRS's coral glue is by far, as far as I'm concerned, the best coral glue.
Really?
For both, and people go, oh, you can get things that are really cheap. You can get coral glue, which is really, really cheap. For not coral glue, but like super glue. Yeah, it's usually really like runny, and the corals don't sort of stick to it properly. BRS is coral glue, which you can get in this country. Someone's obviously importing it and then selling it through the website, or you can buy on eBay. I think is brilliant. The thick is the thick one. It's really, really strong. The other coral glue which I have used for years is Ecotex coral glue. But the cost of BRS is half the cost of the Ecotech one. I think Ecotex is like £70 and BRS is like 30. And as far as the only problem with the BRS one, it's almost too good. So the glue is like hard. With the Ecotech one, you can actually like break corals off like quite easily.
I see.
Whereas it's quite tough. So I have to put like less on, if you see what I mean, for those. But
it's interesting there's such a difference, because I've tried a few coral glues and I found they're all roughly the same. Currently, the one I use is this. It comes as a grenade, Polyp Lab. And the reason I use that is because you get it's 45 quid, which is a lot of money, but you get 25 tubes. They're 4-gram tubes. A tube lasts ages. Yeah. Because it's so tiny, I often found that when I bought the expensive Ecotech stuff, you take the lid off and then you forget to put it back on and it goes hard. Whereas if I do that with this, I don't care, I throw it away.
I don't have that like issue, and I don't know if it's because I use them all the time, so I don't even put the lid on the glue. This shocks people, like when they come and like do the like frags or help out or whatever. I don't even put the lid back on the glue for the BRS one or the Ecotech one, because they actually set with water. So if you're storing it in your cabinet, then maybe that's what's setting it.
No, I can't remember what it was now, but there was a video recently by, you know a channel called Veritasium?
Yes.
It's amazing channel, 17.5 million subscribers, so he's doing all right. A scientist, and this is why superglue is perfect for gluing skin, and it was really interesting. So the way superglue sets is it absorbs moisture, so that's why when you put it in water, it sets quicker. But that was a really interesting video. But yeah, no, I can't. Anyway, it's interesting that there's such a difference with the BRS glue.
Well, the reason I actually mentioned it was not because not to sell it, because I like there's no affiliation with any of these people. It's because the lady on that uses a different type of glue. I don't know if you remember. So the one thing you'll notice about glue, especially if you put it on your skin, is it warms up, and obviously she says that heat could potentially damage the coral, which I don't know. It could be. Mm-hmm. especially if it's sensitive and you're gluing close to flesh. She uses like veterinary grade super glue, and
Yes, I do remember that. I went looking for it. In fact,
I'm going to try. Did you find any? Because I'm going to try that because apparently it has less heat, which is why they use it for vet stuff.
I do remember that. I went looking for it, and I decided not to buy it. I think it was expensive, or because it's an exothermic reaction, isn't it? She says in that video, she says what type of super glue. There was a name or a brand or something, and I went looking for it. It was probably expensive. I can't remember why, but yeah.
See,
but to be fair, I don't think I've ever had any problems with that. But that doesn't mean it's not.
Thing. I don't think that I've ever had any problems. But then again, like when you're cutting something in half, you assume that what killed it is that, not the heat from the glue. If you see what I mean.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but I probably won't change to it. But would I test it? Yeah, I'll give it a go. Just it depends on obviously how. She says it's not that much more expensive. Apparently it's like either for her it was like you got a choice of either like $1 or like $1.75, which it is more expensive, like almost double.
But
in comparison to the cost of some of the corals and stuff, it's like negligible. So every water change I do costs £50, and I'm doing like 3 or 4 a week at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So
why are you doing so many water changes a week?
Because I'm stripping the trays down. So every time the tray gets empty, I fill up with new water, and I'm also maintaining the same water change I normally do. So
right, okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
That's it. Anyway, that's my week in reefing. I've done 41 minutes. I feel like I've done my allotted time.
You said you had nothing to talk about, and you've been blathering on for 3/4 of an hour, for God's sake.
No, look, I was ready to stop at half an hour because that's my allotted time, but I knew that you were going to struggle with yours, so I thought I'll let you. I'll help you out because I'm just that kind.
Right, and why am I going to struggle with mine?
Don't know.
Oh, I see. Right.
Well, I said to you earlier, if you got stuff to talk about, and you're like, nah. So
I got loads. Right. Well, so first off, on Monday, just gone.
Yeah.
I did a 500-mile round trip in a day to go and see a fish tank. First off, never do 500 miles on a motorbike in a single day. I've done before. I've done 260 miles in a single, or 270 before in a single day. No problem. Absolutely fine. Turns out double that is really bad. It was freezing cold for a start. And just by the time I got back, like my back was aching, my shoulders were hurting, I was freezing. It was the journey up there was fine. It was tiring, but it was fine. But the journey back was not worth it. 500 miles is too much for a day. Anyway.
So if you're the person whose tank he went to film, just so you got heard that right there, it wasn't worth it.
It wasn't worth it. Waste of time. So the journey was bad. But what I should have stayed over, I couldn't. But I should have stayed anyway. Doesn't matter. But the tank was amazing. So if you've watched my video from Friday, which I know you haven't because you don't watch my videos because you don't support me.
I actually wanted to watch this video because I was just intrigued by it, but I haven't.
I just watched BRS instead. I see. It's like that. Is it? Anyway, this was the tank. And I haven't got a video of it. That's really annoying. So that's just a photo. It's such an amazing tank. I love it.
It's not all soft coral though, is it?
No. It's probably 60% soft coral, to be fair, maybe even 50%. So the main thing is these two massive toadstools, and that one in the middle in particular is just so beautiful. That pink gunny is nice as well. And they've got torches, chalices. You can see a little multi-barred angel there as well.
Okay, yeah.
But it's such an, if you are ever, so this is at Yorkshire Reefs, and actually Yorkshire Reefs have a birthday coming up that I'm going to look up. They've got a birthday event, and I said I'd mention it, and I've forgotten what date it was. But if you're anywhere near Yorkshire Reefs, and it's in York or near York anyway, it's not worth 500 miles in a day, but I would travel for 2 hours comfortably to see that. It's a really nice shop. And that tank is wicked. It's absolutely beautiful. I'm not a soft coral fan at all, but it's an amazing tank. Their birthday, here we go. So they've got a birthday celebration on the 12th of April, Saturday the 12th of April. It's their 3rd birthday, so a few weeks time. So go along.
Is that a shop then?
Yeah.
Oh, I never knew that.
No, not did I.
It's interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that they that I've heard of them, but I just didn't know it was a shop. I thought it was just someone who had like an Instagram account.
I'm glad you said that because that was what I thought. I follow. I think do I follow? I can't remember, but I'd seen their Instagram before, and I'd seen that tank. I was like, that's a nice tank. And then when I decided I was going to go and film it, it was at that point that I realised it was a shop. I didn't
I
realise.
just wonder how many shops are out there that people just don't know about because they're not shouting about them enough.
Especially when they're only three. They've only been there 3 years, so
Yeah.
you know, new. Well, that's fairly established, but yeah. But there you go.
How often have I said to you, "Oh, this shop's closed down," and you've gone, "Never heard of that shop before"?
Quite a lot.
Yeah, it happens all the time. I feel that
Yeah.
like I think to be successful as a shop in this, you need to have some sort of like media or even advertising, even if it's just Facebook advertising presence. Like, what do I know? You also have to. There'll be loads of things you probably have to choose right.
Yeah, of course.
But I think that because people are hungry for shops, they want to go to them.
But you only know the shops that are near you.
Yeah.
So you don't, and that's not. I mean, like it would be good if you know more shops further afield. One really good way of getting people to get spreading the word, right, Ryan, is to set up an amazing display tank, and then tag me in it, and I'll come and make a video about it.
Yeah,
but yeah, but that was such a nice tank. I absolutely love it, and it's just the movement of that toadstool was wicked. I loved it. It was really nice. It's a 3-year-old toadstool, and I decided to get one for myself, so I bought this one this week. It's just bigger than a tennis ball. It's pretty small, but actually, because that video was going up on Friday, right? And what I was thinking is, if I saw that video, I would go and buy a toadstool the next day. So before that video went live, I went to Reef Keeper. I did an emergency lunchtime mission. I went to Reef Keeper and bought, because I'd seen one in there, and I went and bought it before someone went in and bought it on Saturday. But it's lovely. It's a really nice coral. It's big, and you're going to need to trim it if you keep it long term. But
I've got 2 which were in that coral tray below the zoas. You know, the tray I used to just throw stuff in and just let it grow there for years and years and years. And they're probably about a foot and a half wide. And that's not an exaggeration. They are absolutely massive. They're bigger than the one in that video.
They're not on your website. Why is that?
Because how am I going to ship something that's that big?
But frag it.
Yeah, no, I know that, but we're going to discuss this in a minute with regards to soft corals. Like, it's a pain. It takes ages to turn something. There's only one like toadstool I think I have on the website, which is a green toadstool, which is so bright and the polyps are so long that people often think it's a torch. It's right next to the torches, and people think it's a torch. So you should have let me know. I'd have thought you had a proper toadstool, not that brown one.
I'm going to put it at the top of my my scape, but I've got another space at the top of the other side, so maybe that's the spot for it.
I've literally put one in the water box. That's the only soft coral that will go in there. Is so nice I put it in there. So I just think that when it gets to like a dinner plate size, it's going to cause trouble. So it probably won't stay in there forever.
But cut it back if it's that nice, because that's quite an expensive one, right?
It is, yes, and
so
I saw one today. Yes, so I think it was £120. I think someone bought one today for. So they're not cheap, but they are like, when people see them, they're in the flesh. They're like, that is nice.
To be fair, this one, which is just brown, and it's a lovely coral, that was 70 quid. So
corals have got so expensive.
Yeah,
because I know we spoke about this before, but I'm sure that a toadstool used to be like 20 quid. 15 if a small one, like £15.
Yeah. I'm sure the first ever coral I bought was a toadstool, and I think it was like half that price, 30 quid, 20 quid. Can't remember now.
It's weird because although I obviously have the website, I lose track of the cost of corals because I don't really buy them for myself. So, and if sometimes people will buy a coral from me, or they want one, and I'm like, oh, it's going to be this much, and they go, oh yeah, that's fine, and I'm like, that sounds really expensive to me, but that's what it costs from the supplier. So, I was I've been surprised, but so £70. But if it's a nice coral and you're happy with it, why does it matter?
I've spent more money on smaller acros.
Smaller acros that probably didn't last as long.
Exactly. I've spent more money on acros that died within an hour of going in the tank. So I'm all right with it. If it's a nice coral, and this is the thing, I've got to the point now with that tank, my main tank, it's, I don't know, 60% full of corals, probably a bit more. and I've got quite a lot of space left still, probably 70% full, let's say. But I'm really fussy with the corals. I don't just want to add in, like I used to go into to a local fish shop and I'd buy a coral every weekend, no matter what.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
now I'm fussy. I don't want rubbish in there. I want corals that I really want in there. So, and I'm prepared if that means I have to wait. I'd rather it be done now, but so be it. I can wait. That's fine. So if it takes me a bit of time and then I find one that I really like that, and it's 70 quid, well, I would have bought 3 25 quid corals in the last month in normal circumstances
That's
that
true.
I don't like. So,
you know. Also, like that's one of those corals where you're like almost guaranteed. I mean, someone with your experience is guaranteed success within reason. But
if you don't have to have any experience with that, so that was the first 2 corals I bought. I might have been a mushroom, but I remember I bought a capnella, Kenya tree, and a toadstool. They would still be alive to this day if I drained the tank and let it empty. They were bomb proof, so there's no need to worry about them.
I once had a toadstool, and this is genuinely true, which was 2 feet wide, and I know it was 2 feet wide because it was in a 6-foot tank and it took up a third of the space. And to this day, I sold it to a shop in the end, and I just wonder, like, where is that now? Is it alive? Is it has someone taken it and fragged it into little pieces? Did someone buy it as a whole colony? It's now 3 feet wide because they'll just keep growing. In the wild, they get absolutely massive. So it's interesting because you just wonder, like, what did happen to your original toadstool?
It's true. Yeah, I can't remember what I did with it, but but no, that'll be fine. And actually, when you ever see a list of top 10 beginner corals or whatever, when I've done those before, I don't want to include capnella and toadstools and mushrooms, the blue mushrooms or whatever, because they're boring. So I want them to be really nice, still hardy, but like nice zoas or whatever. But the reality is, if you want the hardiest coral, you want a Kenya tree or a toadstool, a leather coral like that. They're absolutely bomb proof. So if you I just want it to live, get something like that. They can sulk sometimes, but
different people at different stages of the hobby want different things. So you just said I'm happy to have something, but I don't really want the boring ones. So I want like the specific ones. Whereas some people just want anything that will just live.
Completely,
like some people will have real trouble, and obviously like things die, and then they're like, well, it's okay because I've got one toadstool which survives, and I'll just fill the whole tank full of toadstools.
I remember when I went looking for my first coral, I was trying to find. I spent a lot of time researching to find the hardiest possible coral. Like I don't care what it looks like. I just want it to be easy to keep. And actually, as it turns out, I probably could have got something a lot less hardy, and it would have been totally fine. But I was like, I don't want to fail. I want this coral to be alive, and I want to keep it safe.
I would say that's probably the mentality of like 95% of people that have done their research first. I'm not talking about the people who just go, I want a fish tank for Nemo. Like if you've done some research, that is the mentality people have. I don't want to kill anything at all. So much so that I'm only willing to go for something really, really like hardy. And whereas you're right, once you've been in the hobby for a long time, you start to go, I didn't really need to start with green star polyps. Probably, I probably could have got away with a hammer coral or something relatively like. Oh, don't go with a torch. My first LPS coral at my local fish shop. I was nervous, so I had some soft corals. I went into a Maidenhead. It's no longer around anymore, and they went, "Oh yeah, have this torch. They're easy." I now know torches are not that easy. I did keep it alive, and it actually grew loads of heads. So I was obviously did something right, but I think torches, like the old green torches, were hardier than these new like fancy gold variations and stuff. But
it's funny because they can be hardy, they can be totally fine. And this is the thing that I'm sure we've said this before. Like if you give 10 torch corals out to people, and 5 of them are like, I don't know what you're talking about, mate. They're an absolute piece of cake. And the other 5 are like, it was dead. I don't know what happened. So
that's the thing. It's like with them, you don't necessarily know all the time what happened. Sometimes you might have an alk swing or something. I've found that alkalinity swings they don't like, and also lowering your phosphate quickly they seriously don't like. So if you go, I'm going to put a load of Roaphos in, and the next day they're like sulking, that's what I've noticed with some of the torches.
Go slow. But they also, Yorkshire Reefs had some, they were, both of them were really interesting. The 2 people who run the shop are Duncan and Saf. Both
Yeah.
really interesting people to talk to. I wanted to do another video. They've got another tank there. I wanted to do a second video, but I just ran out of time. I didn't have time to do the second one. But the second tank, they've got some really interesting stuff going on. So they feed a lot of phyto to this softy tank actually, and quite a lot of other coral food. But they were talking a lot about bacteria. They've got a microscope, and they're as obsessed with microscopes as you are. So they're always looking at stuff. And they were looking at bacteria. And I think they were like gut loading bacteria and feeding it to acros. I forget. I didn't go into it in detail, but I'd love to go back and talk to them about that other tank because they'd have some really interesting insights.
Someone said that is it Sapphire or Saf? You said was on. It's pretty frequently. Where is it? I can't find it. Is on. What's the other podcast?
Reefers Network. Yeah.
So I've seen that, and I didn't realize that. I knew that she owned a shop, but I didn't realize it was Yorkshire Reefs. So
there you go.
So when we were saying you should get out there and people shops need to do more advertising, they're like, she is.
Yeah. Well, no, but I mean,
she is. I'm just not listening, basically.
Yeah. But yeah. And that actually they've got a good social media presence. They understand how social media works. So and that's a lot of good shops, or a lot of shops that do well put stuff on social media, because you've seen how, and not just YouTube, but you've seen how even you post stuff on Instagram, people buy corals.
Yeah.
It's like
Reef
Keeper. I talked to them the other day about it, and they said if they stop posting on Facebook, their sales drop off, and if they start posting random stuff, sales pick up. People forget you. So.
It's I think it's knowing business is like constant contact. You need to keep reminding people that you exist, and
right.
Assuming people know you exist is a massive failure with regards to marketing. Because
is that why Coca-Cola still advertises? Because
probably. Although I can't remember the last time I saw a Coca-Cola advert that wasn't at Christmas, because that's the only time you ever see it, isn't it? Again, I don't really watch TV anymore. I only watch YouTube, but just not you.
It's not me, bastard.
but yeah. So I think basically when people follow on Instagram or Facebook, you're in their pocket. So if you put a post out and they're sitting there eating their dinner, they might go, I'll have a look. He's put some coral up. Maybe he's put 10 pictures of coral. I'm not interested in those, but there might be some other stuff on there. Maybe some old stuff has come back in stock. That's the other thing that's really weird. If I post new corals, people buy the old ones. I'm like, why are you making me post pictures of new corals when all you want is the old ones that you've just been ignoring for weeks? They've been on there for years.
Yeah. It's funny how it works, isn't it? But...
yeah. But it's just about drawing people over. Sorry, we digressed again.
Yeah, I've got a few things to rattle through, and we'll talk a bit more about soft corals. So firstly, and you're going to love this, Ryan. You're going to absolutely love it. You won't be able to get enough of this. I changed the roll on my Bubble Magus filter roller this week.
That was very exciting.
It was. And that's
the sort of content we have here. Pinnacle.
Yeah. So it lasted for 5 months. It was on the Cade. It lasted for 5 months, and that thing is just brilliant. There are no frills to it. It doesn't have an app. Changing the roll is really easy, but if you miss it and it gets all pulled all the way through, then it's a complete pain in the arse. Unlike with the good ones like the Reef Factory and the Red Sea one, it doesn't really matter. You can do so. If you miss the end of the roll, it's a pain in the arse. But if you don't miss it, you just staple on, and it's easy. It's really easy. Works great. It's quiet. It just does its job. It's so good. It's not as sophisticated as the better ones in the hobby, but if you just want a cheap filter roller, and they're like half the price of the expensive ones, it's fantastic. So good. Love it.
Well, you haven't sold it to me because I already have a Red Sea one.
Well, no, and that's the thing. On my Red Sea tank, I have a Red Sea filter roller, and that's not because they gave it to me, partly because of that, but it's because I wouldn't. If you gave me the choice of if Bubble Magus gave me one, I'd say no thanks. I'll keep the Red Sea one. But it's not as good as the Red Sea one. But if you want a simple one, it's just brilliant. You just can't beat it. They're absolutely fantastic. Well, you can beat it, but you know what I mean. Anyway, I'm also going to add a second UV. I've ordered a second UV sterilizer. So on my main tank, I currently have, I think it's a 48 watt Deltec. And I've ordered a second one, so now I'll have basically 100 watts of UV on that tank.
That's
Why
what
do you
fear does
think I
to
might?
you. Fear.
Why do you think I might have done that? Fear. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other reason?
Well, but you need a certain number of kilowatts to work. I'm assuming for it to work properly.
More is
Is that
better,
why?
basically.
Is it about clarity of the water?
Nah, don't care about that. I've got ozone for that. Ozone's brilliant for that, by the way. It does really well. And also, actually, ozone will. I've one of the reasons I've avoided soft corals in the past is because actually, you know what? We'll come on to that. I'll finish this off. But no, it's basically it's a disease control thing. Two more things, and then we'll talk about a bit more about soft corals. Number one, in the Cade tank, I've got a bubble tip anemone in there, and I put 2 naked clownfish in there. One of them has started living in the anemone. The other one, not interested. Because Mrs. Clown is living in the anemone, and the bloke is just, I don't know if they've had an argument or something, but it's been at least a month, and only one of them goes in. It's like,
do they get on with each other?
Like a house on fire,
that's good,
as far as you can tell. I don't understand why one goes in and the other one doesn't. In fact, last night I saw the male, was sleeping in the Duncan coral. And it's like, go to the anemone.
I've got a pair that are hosting or that are living in a. Someone's going to put in the comment section. It's not the clowns that host. I've got a pair that live in mushrooms at the moment. I don't know why. Like they have access to other corals, but they live in they don't have access to an anemone at the moment, but they live in like the green furry mushrooms. So it's when they live in. Sometimes, have you ever noticed sometimes that clownfish get these black dots on them when they're living in corals? It's actually a thing. So when clownfish are living in like something that's not an anemone, the coral essentially is stinging them, and it turns their scales black in some areas.
Oh, interesting.
So when people see it at first, they're like, "Oh my god, my fish is dying!" Like, what's this black disease that it's got? And then, because this happened to me, I can't remember what it was living in, but it's more like a public service announcement. Yes, that's it. And sometimes it can be really, really bad, where they're like almost like properly covered in it. But if you saw that and you didn't know what it was, it would frighten you, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly what. So someone's posted this on Reef to Reef, and he's gone, "Oh God, what's up?" And someone's like, "Yeah, he's got too close to LPS or whatever."
Yeah,
interesting. I didn't know that.
It's interesting because it's like all the time we learn stuff on this show. Like I learn stuff from you, and like hopefully you learn some stuff from me. But that's what I've said this loads of times. That's what's so amazing about this hobby. You can never stop learning. Because like you can't ever absorb all of the information, and by the time you have, you've forgotten the information at the beginning. So time to start again.
yeah, but that's interesting. I've never seen that. Okay,
it's pretty regular, especially when people give you their clownfish, and I'm like, "This has been living in a coral, hasn't it?" And they're like, "Yep."
Yeah. Okay, that's funny. Oh, so that's why you see it, because you inherit clownfish.
Yeah, I've had it before. My own clownfish was the first time I saw it, but yeah, when people could shut down their tanks and they go, "Oh, like, I don't care. Could you put this in the coral farm?" I'm like, "Oh, go on then." Like they're not expecting me to keep them forever. They just want to get rid of them so they can shut the tank down. So they seem to adult clownfish are one of the things that are difficult to move on, because usually people already have clownfish, and you can only have 2. So, but why they bring them to me, I don't know.
Very true. Well, the last thing is good news for you, Ryan.
Okay.
I have had an outbreak of dove snails.
Oh, that's good.
So, yeah, exactly. So I've now got millions of the bastards in my main tank in particular. I've got some more in the Cade, but not loads really. But I've got they're everywhere in the Red Sea tank. So you can have. I'll bring some down next time I see you. I keep finding regularly they're a little eggs. They're very recognisable, small discs, translucent discs, very recognisable. And I see them all the time now, so they're just breeding constantly. It's great. I don't like you can have as many as you want in there. I'm not going to take them out. They're brilliant.
Yeah, so I used to love them myself, but people used to sell them for £1. They were like, I remember it. Whoa! Now I've told you that. Don't you think that's what's going to happen? I remember when I first started, people used to sell them for £1 each. So
to be fair, that's good. I would pay that. Believe.
Yeah.
If you're going to sell it for £1, you might as well give it away. To be honest.
Yeah, I know. I was asked for aspirinas the other day.
Really?
Yeah, one of my customers was like, "The only Astorinas I can have." I'm like, unfortunately, they're all gone. Because
It's weird. Go on.
I put Harlequin in every single tank. They completely
Oh, of
obliterate all the
course. Yeah, yeah.
Astorinas, and then I sell them to the customers. So it works.
I've got a couple in the Cade, but they've been there for ages, and I never see loads. And in the Red Sea, same. I haven't really got a plague. Like in the last tank, there were millions of them. It got to the point where like the sandbed was covered in them. But don't really have that many at the moment. But I do have them. But yeah, there you go. Free cleanup crew. What was I going to say? Yeah, so soft corals, Ryan. Oh, we probably talked about it quite a lot. But so soft corals, there are some soft corals I still don't like. So Kenya tree, for example, that's boring.
They also go everywhere. I mean, look, you can get green ones, can't you? You get like bright green ones, but they're also
boring.
Okay. Well, what's the difference between a Kenya tree and a toadstool then? What like with regards to with regards to what makes them more interesting?
So Kenya trees just have little tiny polyps and they wave a little bit, but not really. The toadstools, they create a really interesting pattern, like this undulating pattern, and they've got little polyps on the end, little polypy things on the end of the tentacles, and the tentacles like wave, and there's loads of movement.
Yeah, but Kenya trees move around in the
Yeah,
I would say that a bright green Kenya tree is something. If you're going to have a soft coral tank only, that's one of those corals that you need to have. No,
they're so boring. No, look, this is the thing. You and I disagree on what is
okay.
A nice coral
I want you to do a poll. Do a poll because I think now this needs to be worded correctly. Is that if you're having a soft coral only tank? Remember, most soft corals are brown. Is that a nice coral? And it also waves in the flow.
If you're having a soft coral only tank, okay, fine. All right, I'll allow that. Yeah. But that is still a boring coral.
I disagree. We can disagree. We can agree to disagree, can't we?
Yeah. But this is the thing. So a lot of soft corals I just don't like. The green one actually is not too bad, but every coral's green in the hobby, isn't it? So the green one's not too bad.
Except those beige soft corals.
Yeah. Well, this is a typical brown Kenya tree.
Yeah.
So, well, that says super green. Anyway, those for me, they spread like crazy if you're not careful. They drop babies off, and they're a nightmare. So I'm not a fan of those. But toadstools are lovely. I'm not really a fan of mushrooms, but I did see Yorkshire Reefs had a couple of bounce mushrooms. They had I can't remember what they're called. Uranium bounce mushroom was one of them, and the other one was just a typical bounce mushroom with all the really nice colours and that. They're nice. I can get on board with them.
Yeah.
What else? What are the humours? Florida and Recordias. Sorry.
Yeah.
They're nice. Get on board with Recordias.
You don't see them as often as you used. The Florida ones, you definitely don't see as often. I think they actually had a massive wipeout of them in Florida, which is what explains why. But I used to have a massive rock of them, and I almost wish I hadn't. Like, I cut them down and sold them all, and they sell for a huge amount. But eventually, they just you can't keep up with the demand, and I wish I'd kept some. So,
yeah. Okay. But yeah, what corals? Have you got like a list of soft corals that you like?
Okay, so zoas I like. I think that's a given. Have we moved on to the soft coral section of this?
I think so.
We've kind of like been talking about soft corals most of the time because we didn't do the fish of the week or the coral of the week or member questions, which is what we normally do before we do the main topic. So you throw me off.
Let's get organised then, shall we?
Okay.
We'll start with member questions.
I like how you're like, should we just talk about soft corals now?
I don't know, Ryan. I don't know, mate, do I? I'm waiting for my bloody second beer. I ordered it like 5 minutes ago.
I did notice slacking today. You wait till she listens to this on the way to when she walks to work in the morning.
Mm-hmm. First question is from Tomo Bishbosh, who says, how many of us leave our Tunsey algae scraper in the water? If so, are you not worried about the magnet? Ryan, do you leave your algae scraper in or do you take it out?
It currently is in, but generally speaking, almost every day I take it out. And the main reason I take it out is not to do with rust. It's because those little are they called spiridid white snails or something? Yeah. The little tiny white things. Yeah. If they get underneath there and without you realizing, and then you go, it will scratch the glass. So you should always take them out. Is what I say.
Okay.
You might beg to differ, but
I'm never worried about rust with them. Every
yeah,
now and then you'll see someone who has even a good quality magnet like a Tunzi. You'll see someone who has a problem with it. I've never taken it out from more or less from day one, and I've been using Tunzi magnets for years, and I've never had them rust. You change the blade every 12 months or something, and I've never had an issue with it. So I'm not bothered about that at all. But you're right, and I still leave them in, even though they get a lot of growth on them. But I do have on my flipper in the Cade that gets covered in bubble algae, and every now and then I'll take that out and clean it off. And on the other side that touches the glass, things go under there that hide. So every now and then I have to take the magnet off and like just rinse it out, basically. So yeah, that's a good reason. But I'm never bothered about rust personally.
there you go.
Andy Angel says, any recommendations for low light and flow encrusting corals? And that is seconded by Edward. He says for me it's about filling dark spots in my aquascape. So I'll come back onto that. So Sophastria is your low light and coral.
Yep. I have Sophastria, which will grow under the coral tray, Leptoceras, some the Funny Farm Leptastria will do it. So
I thought it was a Funny Farm Leptoceras.
Actually no, I think it is Leptoceras. Yeah, you are right. Yeah, Leptoceras. It looks like a Leptastria is why I said that. But yeah, you are right. That's why it's called Funny Farm, because it looks different to all the other Leptoceras. But yeah, Sophastrias I would say would probably be my first choice, because they come in so many different colors and they're not super invasive, whereas some Leptoceras are. So
yeah. A lot of encrusting corals will grow in the dark, to be fair. And even if you have an acro, that will grow and encrust into dark patches. It won't look very nice, but the base of it will do. So yeah, Sunset Monty is perhaps not a terrible choice either. But the trouble is, and the second part of that question was from Edward, who said, for me, it's about filling out the dark spots in my aquascape. And having a coral in a dark spot is better than having no coral, I suppose. But corals in dark patches without light on them look really boring. So if you've got a coral that grows on the underside of a rock, it hasn't got any color and they look really drab. So it's better than nothing, but I'm never that mad keen on it. It's much better to have lit surfaces, illuminated surfaces.
Or this is what I do sometimes: get something which is branching and stick it underneath so if it's being shaded, it's obviously being shaded by a rock above it or a coral. Well, I'm assuming it's a rock. Yeah. So sometimes I stick my toadstools underneath the rock so that the head of it sticks out, and then that fills in a large area, so that hides some of the shaded spots.
Mm-hmm.
But you are correct. Even like some of the nicer coloured Leptoceras or Sophastria, once they go into the dark, they'll grow there, but they don't look the same. So it's almost like, what's the point?
They're just boring. So the shaded areas I have in my tank, I've got some areas where they're shaded by prongs. So there's shade, light, shade, light. There's just patches, and I tend to put corals in the light patches, and I don't put anything in the shade. I don't bother personally. But yeah, Jack-o'-lantern Leptoceras is a really good one. Mine grows, to be fair, the Jack-o'-lantern in the cave behind me that is growing underneath the rock, so it is completely shaded. That looks all right, to be fair. The bit that grows on top looks really nice. The bit underneath still looks really nice.
Sun coral. There you go. That's my
sun coral. But then you got to feed it, and
you do have to feed them. So that is part of it. But if you want a coral to live without being without light, that looks really, really nice, even when it's in the dark, pretty much. Sun coral.
Non-photosynthetic.
Correct.
Yeah, I don't approve of that, but you're right.
What type of coral is a sun coral? Because I actually don't know. Is it an LPS coral?
Oh, I think so, yeah. It looks like it. I've never had one, but they look like they've got a stony base, right?
Yeah, they do have a stony base. I've never asked the question, so I'm not actually sure.
It's a cup coral in the family Dendrophilidae, according to what's it called? Wikipedia.
It's one of those weird corals that like most, like I know a torch is an LPS or like a Istrix SPS, but I just don't know what a sun coral is. I know it appears to be an LPS.
Yeah, it is an LPS coral.
Oh,
but
yeah.
to be fair, the reason for that is because when people talk about sun coral, you don't classify it as an LPS. You classify it as a non-photosynthetic.
Yes, that's so true.
Because it's more useful. I don't care if I'm keeping a sun coral, I don't care if it's an LPS. I care if it's photosynthetic or not. So that's better information.
True.
But
there you go. See, I learned something this stream too.
There you go. But those were the end of the member questions. So let's do the Prestige Reef Fish of the Week.
So the Prestige Reef Fish of the Week we're going for this week is a dragon pipefish. These dragonface pipefish, they are one of the coolest fish I have ever owned. I had them for like 4 years. Now, in the end, unfortunately, they were found on a powerhead. I don't know. I don't believe that the powerhead is what got them, because like they've been there with the same powerhead for 4 years. So I think probably that they died, and then
more likely.
The powerheads are quite strong. The thing about these is that they are supposedly okay in a reef tank because they can handle flow much better than others. And they're just really, really interesting fish. And when people see them because they're in the coral farm, like when I very, very first started the coral farm, I put loads of fish in there that would do jobs. These supposedly eat red bugs. I've never had red bugs, so I guess if I did ever have them, that was they worked. I don't know if they'll eat other things, but they go around hunting really, really small like microfauna. So chances are they probably would eat things like nudibranchs. I don't know. They possibly could, but that's just a guess. But when people saw them in the coral farm, there's certain fish that people go, wow, that's a really cool fish. Like, what is that? Because they look sort of like stretched out seahorses, but they don't look like other pipefish. If you know other pipefish that like the blue stripe ones, they have sort of different faces to them, don't they?
Yeah, this is true.
So
long, but that's kind of the same. But yeah, no, they're on my list to get for the main tank.
They also supposedly have a toxin as well. The reason I say supposedly is I was told this. I was actually told this by one of the wholesalers, so you would assume that that is correct, but I couldn't find any information, I don't think, at the time about it. But yeah, so if you've got one of these, let us know in the chat, because they are like really cool, and I would, as I said, I would get them again.
I want a pair. They're cool. Yeah, they are toxic when they die. Well, according to a post on Ultimate Reef from 16 years ago.
Okay, there you go.
But yeah, I'm sure I've heard that before. Anyway,
it probably came from me.
Yeah, probably, yeah. But yeah, they're really cool fish. I like them. Nice fish of the week. What about the Prestige Reef Coral of the Week?
The coral of the week I'm going for is a Frankenstein bounce mushroom. They are one of the lesser, like, well-known bounce mushrooms. Some of them get really, really massive, like the pink bits on the outside are totally random on them. You see some when they're really, really uniform. I actually have one in the coral farm which is really uniform, and that's a uniform one, and then some where you can see that like they're vastly, vastly different. That's the one I've got in the coral farm. And the reason it's out of stock is because it has crawled onto the coral tray and has left like 3 or 4 babies on the coral tray, and I can't get them off the coral tray. So look at that, beard turned up. There you go.
I had to email her, and I had to DM her on Instagram and send her a WhatsApp voice message.
Not good. Not good. Do you know who brings? Actually, you should say something very nice now so that she hears it tomorrow morning, because otherwise you won't get a beer in the future.
I'm going to put her on a wife performance plan, and we'll discuss this. We'll meet on a weekly basis to work on some kind of improvement.
I've always wondered why you get a beer delivered halfway through the live stream. I've realised it's because you want it cold. Is that the reason you do it? Yeah. I'm going to supply you with a polystyrene box that I ship coral in, and you can put one beer in it, and it will still be cold.
We keep talking about getting a champagne bucket, actually, just for not that we drink champagne often, but for the occasions that we do. But I could do that, fill it with ice, and then just have a bottle of premium.
There is not a chance that every week you're going to fill it with ice and sit there with a beer next to you.
Yeah, she sent me a little message that says she was on the phone. which is a poor excuse.
Not
have you ever gone to the fridge whilst you're on the phone? Yes, you have. Well then.
Yeah, that's true.
Unbelievable. Anyway, soft corals.
Of course. Oh yeah, well, we've done the Frankenstein bounce back, so we've now. That's it, isn't it? There you go.
That is, yeah. So, soft corals, Ryan.
What would you like to know? What would you like to discuss about soft corals? They're great beginner corals. I think that everyone should start with them. Personally.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, they're just yeah. So the one of the things that I stopped liking, one of the reasons I stopped liking soft corals was because I was convinced. Apparently, they release toxins, right? Especially the bigger leathers and all that sort of stuff. And I was convinced in my first tank that was having an impact. And when I had I had a Kenya tree and a big toadstool. And when I took them out, everything got better pretty quickly. And in the main tank, in my tank where this toadstool is going in, I run ozone. So as far as I'm aware, and I'll find out, that means that it won't be a problem. I'm not going to have an issue because it neutralizes the toxins. Because if you're reliant on changing your activated carbon regularly, I get lazy with that, and I'll do it like once a month for 2 months, and then I'll stop. But with ozone, it's just on all the time. So it's not on all the time, but it's on every day. So I like that. Have you ever had issues with toxins?
Not that I know of. I run carbon in the coral trays, which I would assume that if there was going to be an issue, that would deal with it. But I have heard it as well, and it makes sense. Like they don't have a sting, do they? So they release a toxin. Like they might have a sting, they might have a small sting or whatever. People all the time, I'll say something that is like 99% accurate, and they'll come back and go, just so you know, they do have a sting. So I believe that they have either a very no sting or a very minor sting. And what it does is supposedly this toxin stops things growing near them. Supposedly, I think you actually know the name of it, isn't it? Like it begins with A.
Ryan BRS talks about that. Allelopathy,
something like that. Yeah, I wasn't even going to attempt it, but
so I think it is a thing. But and that was the one thing I remember from my big soft corals was that when I took them out, the tank improved. But I'd had them for quite a while, to be fair. And if you just do, maybe if you're doing, I can't remember if I was doing water changes, I probably was. But if you're doing water changes and you're running carbon, it's not an issue.
I think that they are an absolute. Sounds like a weird thing to say about just like an option, because that's what they are. They're an option in the hobby for something that people can have if they want to. I think they are absolutely essential for beginners. This hobby has a very sharp learning curve, and I think that anything that can help that learning curve and give people small incremental wins is what keeps people in. One of the biggest issues with the hobby is that people get into it and they aren't successful immediately, and then they leave, because the people that are successful immediately stay in it for years. So that first year of the hobby is essential to get right, and soft corals are one of those things that help with that.
Yeah, and one of the good things about soft corals for your first coral point of view is you don't have to know about dosing.
Correct.
So that was I couldn't, when I started researching, I couldn't understand what dosing was. I was like, so when you look up, there are loads of different types, and I was like, what's Triton? I remember going on the Charterhouse website when Triton was a lot bigger, and I was trying to understand what I need to start Triton method, because this was the dosing thing that works really well. And I was like, so what do I need? Do I need a dosing pump? And then I need bottles, or what? I just couldn't work it out. And even when you do work it out, because it's actually not that hard, there's a really good video on the Reef Dork channel about Beginner's Guide to Dosing, just saying. But even when you do work out what dosing is, if you've got to then monitor your parameters and work out hang on, I'm dosing a load of calcium, but it's not going up. Why is that? And all sorts of issues that can come up. Why isn't my magnesium going up? I'm dosing loads of Ulfa-Reef or whatever. There's all things that you can't work out. You don't have to worry about that if you've got soft corals, because you're not chucking in a ton of dosing liquids.
That's true. I don't think I started dosing until probably well after a year in the hobby. I was just doing water.
Yeah, exactly.
So
it's funny actually, because I've said in the past, really you don't need to worry about dosing for the first 6 months to a year, but actually, and there's some truth in that. But actually, anytime I set up a tank, I'm dosing within a month or two, because I've got corals in.
that's the type of corals you have as well.
I mean, even with like the Cade and my current tanks are just LPS tanks. Plenty of beginners have LPS tanks.
Yeah. I think that one of the other reasons is that if you that things can get out of hand. The longer you leave them, eventually they'll get out of hand.
And
so
the
it's
thing
better
is,
just to dose one bit.
You can just leave it, and if you're doing water changes, it will cope and it'll be okay. But and that means that you don't have to understand dosing and do all this testing and weird stuff. But actually, it's better to dose because then everything will be stable and everything will be happier, and you're less likely to get a torch coil. You just spent 200 quid on dye. So, but that's the beauty that's one of the beauties of softies is they don't have.
Trust me, if you're getting into the hobby and you're buying a £200 torch coral, you definitely are one of the people that needs to have a consultation with me if that's your first coral.
Yeah.
Sorry,
but yeah, Zoa's a beauty of a soft coral. Zoa's actually a coral, technically. Are they type of anemone or some?
Yeah, I think so. It's funny because like we know how to keep them alive and we can grow them everything, but we never actually learn. But I think you are correct. I'm not. I think people have corrected us before.
But in the same way that mushrooms are actually anemones, I think. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
Whereas but anyway, mushrooms, we call them soft coral because they're soft and it looks like a coral. So they're really good. The only thing with Zoas, I think the biggest thing with Zoas, that if I could change anything in the hobby, actually there'd be a lot, I suspect. But one thing in particular, people buying single polyp Zoas, it's the worst thing you can do. If you know what you're doing, and you've got a really a good tank that runs and looks after yourself, fine, do it. But if you've just got a new tank and you buy one polyp of a Zoa because it's cheap, it's probably going to die. Well, it's not probably going to die. It's much more likely to die than if you buy a colony, like even a mini colony, like 10 heads on a frag plug or 5 heads on a frag plug. Even like
2 or 3 heads is better than 1 head.
Completely. It's just but the worst is when they're the fancy ones, and so they're like 50 quid a polyp, and you'll get one for 50 quid, and it's probably been on that frag plug for a week, which means it's not properly gripped on. So an urchin will come along and take it off or whatever. So I'd love there to be more polyps of Zoas, and because Zoas grow so quickly, most of them.
Yeah,
there's no reason not to. Because you end up with I've noticed before you put you'll have 3 polyps advertised on your website, and then by the time it arrives at someone's house, actually it's been there 6 months, so there's like 10.
that happens literally. I almost think some of my customers do it on purpose now, where they buy a single they'll buy a single polyp, and occasionally they will get a single polyp.
Yeah, it's not guaranteed.
It's not guaranteed. I almost think people sometimes they are buying single polyps, and then because they know that the last time they bought Zoas from me, it had like 10 heads. Because it's in my interest to get rid of them because I've got so many. If depending on what type they are, I'm happy to.
But that's the thing, because Zoas generally grow so quickly. Why not have a frag plug covered in it?
The other thing that I will say is with regards to these single polyp Zoas, it is not easy to get a single polyp of Zoas onto a frag plug. It's not. So if it's easy to just scrape a load of off the tray or off a rock or whatever. You just pull them off, don't you? And then and stick 10 on. And you never know. Of those 10, 3 of them might die, but you never notice because 7 of them were alive, and that's fine. Whereas with to get single polyps, you usually have to have a razor blade, which for a start, you're cutting through the flesh and things. It's just not worth it. You're 100
squirting death juice into your eye.
Yeah, but it's you're literally cutting the actual polyp itself, or as close as possible to the polyp, which means you're potentially damaging it, and it might live for a week or a month or whatever, but it's not as healthy as one that hasn't been cut.
There are some Zoas, I can't remember is it speckled cracks?
Yeah.
There are some that are notorious for it, and so you'll have a small colony that's doing well, and you might have 20 heads or whatever, and then someone will think, I'll frag it, and you frag one little tiny corner off, one little polyp off, and then everything dies. It's like, what the hell?
Yeah.
I've never had really fancy Zoas, but to be fair, the only time Zoas die with me are when I put them on trying to make a Zoa garden, and then one takes over. For 6 months, it'll look awesome because they're growing out and they're looking relatively even, and then suddenly it becomes a dominant one, and all the others disappear. Those are the only times that I have Zoas die. They just don't die otherwise.
You have to sort of keep an eye on them. with regards to stop the others growing over each other.
Yeah. Oh, completely.
You get some really, really nice Zoa gardens these days. And one of the best things to do with these Zoa gardens, because they're usually lots of Zoas all stuck onto a single plate, get like a knife and just pop each individual Zoa off that. You've got a load of Zoas for a much cheaper rate than before. You're about to advertise your there you go. So what you should do is you should get your Zoa garden, you should get a knife, pop them off, and then stick them onto one of Alex's 3D printed mounds that you get from where?
reefdork.se.com. It does. So I'm showing you this because I'm gonna. And this is why I made these, because they've got a little flat bit, so you can put the 3 frag plugs in there. You can put 3 Zoas in there, and then 6 months later, when they've grown off the frag plug, you take the frag plug off. So then this thing is covered in Zoas anyway. You put a new frag plug in place. You sell your old frag plug, and then it's in a couple of months' time, you just keep repeating the process. And that provides a nice little income to pay for some salt, but it also means that you've got you're controlling the spread. And I do that. You don't have to use these. Do the same thing with your rocks. If you've just got drilled holes in your rock or whatever, put your frag plug in your rock and do the same thing. And when you pull that off, it stops the spread. It'll only like set you back 6 months. It won't completely stop it, because they will end up going everywhere. But I love doing that. I love pulling them off, and then also when you get to that point, that frag that you're selling of Zoas is covered. So it's not just 1 or 2 polyps. You're selling. You've got like a dozen or 20 or whatever, probably more. So I love doing that, and you don't need to worry about cutting them. You just pull it off, and it just comes away.
Yeah, I agree. I actually literally have frag racks that are covered in them and just keep replacing. I do the same with green star polyps as well.
So tell us about, because you frag stuff all the time, right? So tell us how Zoas, GSP. How do you
started on fragging soft corals? Like,
too late.
I believe that I could significantly increase the sales of the website if I could like nail down fragging soft corals and getting them to stick quickly to frag plugs, because as I said, if you look at what is an option, soft corals are one of the things that people want at the beginning, and I think beginners in this hobby are actually one of the biggest. What is it? Is it demographics? Is that the right term?
Yeah.
You might disagree with me, but do you think the beginners are a substantial portion of the hobby, or do you think long-term people in the hobby are more substantial?
I think probably there's a lot of people who come and go. A lot of beginners.
Yeah, so I think that if I sold more soft corals, I could make a lot more sales. The problem is soft corals are a pain in the ass to frag in comparison to LPS and SPS corals, and it's because they don't stay where you want them to stay. Yeah. I've tried gluing them. I've tried there are definitely ways of doing it. It's not like unachievable. Some people use cocktail sticks with things like toadstools and stuff like that. It's just, for me, they're a pain. And if I've got a limited space, and do I want something which is a pain, or do I want something which is easy, I'll go with the easy option every time. So with regards to Zoas and Xenia and green star polyps, I've got a couple of different types. I let them grow over the rack and over plugs, because that's the easiest way of doing it. Yeah. But with regards to the more fleshy things like toadstools, finger corals and stuff like that, if I'm selling them, it's because I've got them from a wholesaler, because fragging them for me is a pain. Other than the green toadstools, I do. And with them, I do.
So how do you frag the green? What do you do with that? Do you rubber band it down or something?
It's actually not what you're meant to do. So I divide them into 4. So the most important thing to me is that they're on a frag plug already and they've grown onto the frag plug. I literally get a scalpel and cut them into 4. So we've got 4 different sections, and then use the saw to cut 4 so that they're already stuck to something. And I just glue that to a new frag plug, and it works.
Oh, I see. Right.
So whereas the concept of cutting them, and they also turn into toadstools relatively quickly from doing that, because they've already got the height.
They get their shape. Yeah.
Yeah, they get their shape like usually within a month. If you take a cutting of the disc or of a toadstool and then stick that down, even if you are able to stick it down, it will take a lot longer than a month to then grow a stalk and turn into a toadstool.
Interesting. So, but with those kind of corals, you can just cut any bit off them, and in
Yeah.
theory, if you can grip it onto something, it'll grow back. But
Look, there's loads of ways to grip it on. People use nets. People put it in low flow areas, and they let them like stick to rocks and stuff like that. But they're not very attractive. That's the problem.
yeah,
If I cut a toadstool into like 100 pieces, put it into plastic trays with like the rubble on, and then they all stuck to there, no one's going to see that as a toadstool. They're going to see that as like a little piece of like
blob
coral flesh.
yeah.
And it's ugly, so it's not going to be a big seller. Whereas if I just import them, they look like toadstools, and people buy them straight away.
Yeah.
So
that's Yorkshire Reefs do the rubble thing with mushrooms. They just put a load of rubble in, and then if a mushroom spreads onto it, great. You can then glue the mushroom, the rubble onto a frag plug.
Yeah,
is that what you do with mushrooms?
I'm not really big on mushrooms. Well, I don't sell a huge amount of soft corals. Again, the soft corals I have sold are always been imported. And when you import mushrooms, they come usually at like 10 or sometimes like 30 on a big rock. And then you cut the rock up and then you stick it onto frag plugs, and then you sell them like that. But actually breeding them myself, breeding them is probably a weird term, but you know what I mean. Like growing them myself I don't do that with mushrooms. The only ones I do is the green furry ones, because they grow fast, like fast.
Okay.
So, but the high end discosomas like jawbreakers would be worth doing, because they're like over £100, but they're usually pretty slow. And as I said,
you've got one of these in the farm somewhere, haven't you?
Not anymore. I sold it. So
I see.
For me to do to do those, I would have to have a tray. And like, what I'm about to say is true, but I know what you're going to say, because I'd have to have a tray, and then you put the mushrooms in, and then you hope for the best that they turn into something. They like, you have 100 of them. That is taking up space, which I could use for something else. And what you're about to say is you have loads of space in other trays where the taros are just a mess. So,
for example, the new one that leaked the other day that you fixed, and
But even that will make a massive difference, like long term, with regards to what I grow in it. So I feel like I've done a lot of talking. So if you would like to interject, by all means, go for it.
Well, in which case, let's move on then, shall we? If we've got, because I think we've done soft corals. I probably should have gathered my thoughts and put a list of stuff to talk about, to be fair. But hey, there we are. We've done soft corals, so that means we're going to move on to the news. And there is news this week, Ryan. So do you want to start with stuff that you will be interested in, or stuff that you won't be interested in?
Won't be interested in. Let's end on a high. But you've done this to me before, and it was the other way around. You told me I wouldn't be interested, and I was. And then the thing that I was meant to be excited about, I was like, why would I be excited about this?
Okay. you might be interested in this. So there's every now and then someone comes up with a frozen food automatic feeder, right?
Yes, yeah.
And I can't remember in something. I can't remember. There's one that's around at the moment. It just looks like a mini fridge. There's a new one from a company called Manta Systems. And when I say there's a new one, well, there kind of is, and there kind of isn't. So this is it. That's it. These photos don't really show you the size of it. So the details you need to know about it, right? So this is not currently available. There's a crowdfunding program that's going to start in May of this year. So they're crowdfunding it to get it off the ground.
Yeah.
This is big. Okay. As far as I'm aware, this is correct. Don't shoot me if I'm wrong. But the dimensions on the Reef Builders website say it is 8 inches by 10 inches by 12 inches. That's enormous. That's a foot long. That's huge. And this thing,
12 inches.
It can't be right, because this thing hangs on the back of your aquarium, and that, to me, if that's the aquarium grip, that does not look like. I must have that wrong, or it must be where did I read that? Make sure this is right. It's 8 inches tall, 12 inches long, and 10 inches wide. That can't be right. And it weighs 6 pounds, 3 kilos.
So in theory, it's 5 inches. If you look, the grip is halfway through it, so it'll be 5 inches in the tank and 5 inches off the back of the tank.
Anyway, it's big, okay,
Yeah.
and 3 kilos is a lot. So that's a big old beast. And I think the idea is that it grips onto the edge of your glass. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's how it works. There's a crowdfunder starting for it soon. It can hold 72 cubes of frozen, which is quite a lot. So a big old capacity.
Yeah.
And it goes down to -11, so that is cold. And I've in the notes, it's got a Bluetooth/Wi-Fi app that tells you all sorts of stuff, which is great. And guess how much would you pay for that?
Nothing, because I would not have that on the back of my tank. I'll add them to the list right now of people we've upset on this program. But like reef tanks are meant to look pretty, and look, with someone who's got like a cover, like what James got, by all means, where it's hidden, like it'll be great for them. But I reckon it'll be expensive. I'm gonna say probably like, I don't know, £500 or more.
So it's dollars. Give me a dollar price, USD.
Okay, $800.
$700 is the anticipated price.
Close.
That's a lot.
Wait, if I did the conversion correctly,
I bet it's about 500. Yeah, USD in GBP is.
I would have been. I was closer with £500.
There you go. But yeah, $700. It would be 700 quid if it came over to the UK.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit more, in fact, if anything. Comes with a 1-year warranty as well. 1-year warranties. The world needs to move on from 1-year warranties and give us I know everybody does a 1-year warranty, but we want 2 years. Anyway, $700 for the right person. And because at that price, it's going to be niche. This is not going to be a thing for everybody.
It's not that price, that size.
That's true.
If it was like the only way these are ever going to work, someone needs to invent one where it goes in your cabinet. It has to be vented somehow, obviously, because like a fridge, and it needs to have a tube where you can't see it, and the tube takes the food with a pump, push it into the tank. That's what the other one's like, I think.
I was going to say that's exactly what the other one's like.
Yeah. That's the only way I see us ever working.
Yeah, I agree. But there you go. It's coming for the right person. That could be wicked, especially if you've got antheas, and you want to feed them frozen copepods or whatever. Then great. But that's at that price. That's always going to be niche. I think that's a tough sell. I wouldn't buy that.
But there was someone that I don't know if it ever like picked up, but they had these ice cubes where you could. It was like an ice cube tray. You had like a stick in it, and the mice had stuck to the stick, and then it like slowly throughout the day dripped off into. Now, I don't know what the smell of that would be like. I don't know how long it lasts, but that I think is actually a very simple method of feeding your fish over a long term.
Yeah.
Would it smell? Well, it shouldn't do because it's frozen.
Yeah. And if it's stale, then fair enough. But it wouldn't be because but yeah, anyway, it's coming soon. If you're interested in that, go on Reef Builders, and there's probably a link to the website. You can go and check out the Kickstarter. But $700.
Has it got many people on it?
I didn't see. I don't even know if it said it's starting in May. But yeah.
Well, you keep going, and I'm going to look that up because I'm intrigued.
Okay. Next piece of news: Aaron's Aquarium. Hello, Michael.
Okay. Yeah.
Has announced what tank he's setting up, and it is.
Okay, I'm back. I'm gonna listen. Ready?
There we go. It's a max spec dice all-in-one nano aquarium.
How big is it?
That tank? I think it's a 30 liters. Is it? Let me go back into the 12 gallon. Oh no, hang on. I think it's roughly that sort of size. Do you know where I saw this piece of news?
On his Instagram.
In the comments section of this live stream.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I saw the comment saying he posted on Instagram. Although I watch his Instagram stories, I haven't seen it. So I saw he got some clownfish, I think.
I don't watch Instagram stories, as you know. 12 gallons. So it's a Fluval Evo size, roughly, a bit smaller. Ryan, what do you think of nano tanks?
I don't like nano tanks, and I think that he's kidding himself if he thinks that that's going to be enough to give him that fix. Do you remember the tank he used to have? It was absolutely massive. Yeah. So nice try, Mike. Nice try. Thinking that that's going to be okay, but give it 6 months, and we'll talk about a proper tank.
Yeah. You think a 6-footer. Ryan hates nanotanks.
I hate nanotanks.
But no, I think that's a nice size. It's very
The
manageable.
reason I hate nanotanks is because customers that have nanotanks can't buy as much
Can't
corals
buy
as
corals,
people
yeah.
with 6-foot tanks.
That's very true. But yeah, so there we go. The headline news for there is that future live stream guest Michael Aarons is getting is set up a new tank. I think he said that the cycle's going on or something. I can't remember. But yeah, he's back. Literally, he's officially back.
I'm sure I saw something. He was doing I might be wrong, but I'm sure there was something about 2 clownfish and a bottle of bacteria. So I'm assuming that's the way he's doing his cycle. Is that correct? He's in the comments. So I might have been watching someone else.
When I'm a big time YouTuber like you two, maybe I'll go bigger.
Yeah, I think you're still bigger than I am.
Yeah, it's only marginally smaller than me. So anyway, but yes. So next piece of news is something I mentioned earlier. Yorkshire Reefs. It turns 3 in April. Sorry, they're having their third birthday event. They're going to be the vendors there. There's David Saxby, the world's I don't know most enthusiastic reefer. He's been around in the hobby.
He loves to go to all the shows, doesn't he?
He does. He's mad for it.
Yeah.
Saxby will be there. Reefs Elements will be there. Jose from Reefs Elements. A barbecue. Who doesn't like a barbecue? There's a Yorkshire Reefers who wants to be a millionaire. Cakes and drinks provided. What more could you possibly want?
I don't know.
Nothing else you could want.
Nothing else.
So there you go, and it's free entry as well. So if you are anywhere near Yorkshire, go to Yorkshire Reefs on the 12th of April for their third birthday.
It'll be great. It'll be one of those things where you get a load of people that like reefing together. As I said, the more of these, the better. I was actually looking at barbecues today, and I know this is a tangent, because I thought to myself, I need a barbecue, and if I get a barbecue, I have an event, technically it's a company expense. So the annual Prestige Reef barbecue.
Come on, it's happening.
It's very unlikely to happen, but I genuinely was considering it today, which I know there's some local people. But then how do I get to choose who gets to come, if you see what I mean? I can't have everyone just turn up in my house.
Yeah, well, choose your favourites.
Well, don't
choose
say
your
that.
Favourite customers.
Don't say that. You won't be on it. So.
I won't make the cut. Someone's asked where Yorkshire Reefs is, because Yorkshire is kind of big, which is a fair point. It's in a place called Malton, which is not far from York.
Yeah.
Malton. YO176A8 if you want the postcode. But yeah, so we're going to have a Prestige Reef barbecue.
No, that's not on the news.
Time to peer pressure from Ryan. Okay, interesting. More news. Right. One last piece of news, and this I don't know if you will. Maybe I've oversold this. I don't know.
This is the thing I'm meant to be excited about, isn't it? So let me prepare myself.
Yeah. I've just found out there's another piece of news that I opened the page for, but I didn't read it. So I'll come back onto that. Coral eating fish, Ryan.
Okay.
So you're not really that interested.
I'm intrigued.
In Florida, they've had massive wipeouts of the reef, of the natural reefs in Florida.
Yeah.
Okay. And they've had restoration efforts have been underway for quite a while, and they've been planting corals. But what they found, and I know this isn't funny, but it kind of is funny. What they found is that 97% of the corals they've been planting have been eaten by parrotfish and butterfly fish.
Yeah.
This is a problem with having reef safe with caution fish in your tank, or even not reef safe at all fish. So, but yeah, so 97% of the corals they've been planted have been eaten by these. I
just wonder how many man hours that has been that they have been put. Like how much effort has gone into doing that, where the fish are just completely wiped out. I know you say it's not funny, but it does feel like it's funny because it's like. It's like nature is like going against us.
Yeah, cheers for that. I'll eat that. So it's the fish they're eating it, or they've said the fish they're eating it, the red-banded parrotfish, four-eye butterfly fish, never heard of that, and a spotlight parrotfish. So, yeah. I mean, what do you do about that? It's like
they need some 3D printed cages to go over like rock structures.
I was wondering if they could put in some kind of cover or something, but how do you do that? How do you stop fish from eating corals in the wild?
Yeah, 'cause I thought exactly the same thing. I thought you could probably get some sort of like plastic, which would
Because
already people wouldn't like that because you'll be putting more
exactly.
plastic in the ocean, but that would be the easiest thing to do.
You put plastic covers over trees to stop deer eating the bark, don't you, when you plant new trees? So maybe something like that, but then you can't block the light.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, so
It didn't.
also, how big are those parrotfish? Because like you could have it so that you have holes like large enough so that some things can go through, but because that's the other thing. If you block all fish, then they'll get covered in algae potentially.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Yeah, exactly. But this is a problem. It didn't say anything about what they're doing to fix it, and I'm guessing that they haven't worked it out yet.
Well,
Some of the
if they watch this show, we've just solved it for them. So
buy your 3D printed coral protector from reefdork.etsy.com very soon, and I'll ship it out to Florida. The parrotfish are 28 centimeters, 20 centimeters, and 64 centimeters. Big old parrotfish.
I wonder if is it just small? Like, if they had colonies, would the colonies be able to keep up, or is this forever going to be a problem?
I think I would imagine they've got to be. If they've got massive colonies, it's fine because they're like the Great Barrier Reef exists, for example. Okay.
What I mean is, could they put a massive colony back, or would that massive colony just get eaten one bit at a time? You need to have thousands of massive colonies.
Probably, yeah. The answer is, if you put 1,000 corals in and 97% of them die, put 100,000 in, and then the numbers will still be. But I don't. It's just, how do you deal with that? It's like
in Australia, they have certain areas for swimming, which have shark nets around them. Now they have proper shark nets on like go along the beaches, but also they have like small like shark nets for like when you're taking like children in those areas, because the shark nets are not 100% like they don't work perfectly on the main beaches, but the smaller ones are a complete net. That's the other way, because they're like a floating thing that will section off part of the reef potentially. There you go. Just come up with an idea for them.
There you go. Problem solved.
So.
But it's not good news, and Florida continues to have problems. But that is the end of the news. And the other thing that I forgot to look at properly, I'll just do it next week in next week's news. It was some kind of phyto or something. I can't remember now, but I'll have a look at it properly, because otherwise I'll be fumbling through it and I won't do it justice.
All right, Danny.
Was there anything else you wanted to talk about, Ryan?
Not particularly. I've been watching the eBay stuff. It's actually worked. I'll be honest. I probably will put more stuff here. So it's
what's the
some things have sold relatively cheaply, like for like £7, but generally people are buying multiple things, so it sort of works.
How much is this one that normally sell for? It's currently going for 15 quid.
So I actually haven't sold like that piece. It's not on the website at the moment, so I don't know.
What would you sell it for if you were listing it? Because that's quite nice, to be fair.
It is a nice piece. If you want it, you should bid on it. You got 12 minutes left. But some of the other pieces have gone. Like the Bugatti has gone up.
8 minutes.
But still, there's quite
to go up a lot.
I know it needs to go up a lot, but you have to realize it's across the whole. I have to look at the effort that has gone into it, which corals I put up, if I've grown them myself or not, and if you make because I think so far it's like £300 has been sold. That's not bad for an afternoon taking pictures, and if I've grown them myself, if you see what I mean.
If you want a Reef Dork top tip that you're watching this, buy this one for the reasons that we talked about last week, not the one above, because it's less money. It's not as nice, but give it 6 months, it will be as nice.
Yeah, true. But yeah, that is it. I think that I will probably continue with the eBay stuff, but I think I'll probably be a bit more choosy with regards to what goes up. So some of those corals are corals I bought from a wholesaler, and the amount they've sold for has barely covered the cost of the wholesale cost at the VAT. So I'll probably end up making like, I don't know, I can't say, but I because wholesalers get funny if you start telling people on live streams what the cost of corals are.
Yeah,
But
they do,
I
yeah.
haven't made a huge amount on it. So,
But this is the whole point of eBay, is that you win some, you lose some, and that's for customers and sellers. So
that's exactly what. So someone who used to sell a lot on eBay, once I spoke to him about a year ago. He's actually moved to Australia now. I said to him, "Is it actually worthwhile?" And he said, literally said that some of them will sell for hardly anything, and some of them will go for way more than you think. And overall, it works out. So
yeah, okay. Which is great, because then some people get a really good deal as well.
yeah, true. And the other thing is, potentially some of the people that have bought corals now have paid for their shipping. So they might now go onto my website and go, "Oh, I'll have a look at the other stuff on your website. I like this one too."
Oh, I see. So
And
you
if they're
don't just have to
local
buy
people,
eBay stuff.
if they're local people, will then people come to collect to avoid that. And this worked for me previously. People go, "I never knew you were here." I'm like, "Well, I've been here for 5 years." So, but they wanted to find a really, really cheap coral to get it so they were worth coming over. So
yeah, okay. It's funny because that's always your reaction. I found out there's a Triumph dealer near me, like 20 minutes away, motorbike dealer. I had no idea it was there, and I found it the other day. And there's another. I go to Triumph dealer. There's another one that's close. I went to them the other week, and I said, "I had no idea you're here. How long have you been here?" He said, "Well, we've been here 4 years," and he said it in a way as if to say, "Mate, you dickhead, we've been here ages." I was like, "All right, calm down."
If I can crack that bit where the people that don't watch on YouTube know where I am, like, it will be amazing. Because usually once people have come to the coral farm, like there's not many places that have the same variety of corals. Like most people have a local fish shop and they have one coral tray or a couple of coral trays. So usually once they've been, they go, "Oh, I'm coming back again and again and again and again." But it's that first getting people to come in
through the door,
and that the wow factor when they walk in also, because the people that find me that have not seen the channel have no idea what they're about to see, and then when they see it, they're like, "This is like crazy."
When you find a shop, or like in your case, a farm like that, it's amazing. It's so good when you stumble. Well, I found Reef Dreams, which no longer exists, but the first time I came across that, I was probably 2 years into the hobby, and I was like, "How did I not know this place existed?" It was amazing.
Yeah, and it's I have customers literally pretty much consistently come back every single week. Like come back to buy corals, and sometimes the corals they're buying the second week or the third week were there on the first week. but people get overwhelmed when they come in, because obviously you've been in there enough times now. When you first go in, there's so many corals everywhere that it takes a long time to properly get your bearing. But anyway, totally. I will stop talking because I know we're coming to the end. So.
Very good. All right. The only other thing to say is that I've still got issues with the Spotify video live stream. It won't upload videos at the moment, so it'll be the audio podcast, but it won't do the video for whatever reason. I haven't been able to fix that yet. So if you're listening to the Spotify live podcast, you are listening to it. You're not watching it.
Wow, we have just had the nicest feedback from anyone ever. Another adequate joke.
I'm going to put that as the headline now.
It should be like the podcast, like a description. Say this is an adequate podcast. I'm sure that right. JJ was being nice, because obviously if you're not a member for 14 months unless you're being nice. But I just thought it was funny how it was worded.
That's very funny. Well, that's a good note on which to end it.
Yeah.
Cheers, guys. Catch you next week.
See you later.